Let's talk about this with Eylon Levy. He's former Israeli government spokesman and he's host of Israel, State of a Nation podcast. Good morning to you, Eylon.
Hello, Julia.
Thank you so much for joining us. There's a lot of confusion still surrounding this status of the ceasefire deal. First of all, who actually proposed it? Because it really didn't strike me that it was an Israeli offering that was put on the table. But also, we're told Hamas has accepted the deal, but then Hamas has actually pretty much changed pretty much every single word in the deal. So they've rejected the deal that was actually put to them. Where are we at?
Exactly. Hamas has rejected a ceasefire deal, rejected a deal to give the hostages back. And that's because Hamas has no interest to release the hostages. Hamas is a death cult. It wants this war to drag on and cause as much humanitarian suffering because it wants people at home to hate Israel and it wants them to join its war to destroy Israel. Hamas knows that every month that goes by and this war drags on, more people will get killed and more UN officials will outrageously accuse Israel of genocide. It knows the longer this war goes on, the more it shoots out of schools and hospitals and Israel fights back, Israel will get condemned. The more it sees its alliances under strain. Hamas isn't fighting a war to try to defeat Israel militarily. It's fighting a war to try to destroy Israel in the court of public opinion.
And they're doing a jolly good job of that, are they not? There's no doubt at all. Hamas is winning the propaganda war when it comes to major bodies like the UN. When we talk about even the American government, the pressure they are feeling. I mean, virtually apparently every single student in the world are seeming to think that Israel and Hamas equally are at fault, which is quite an extraordinary state of affairs to be in. But in terms of the actual details of this is as much as we know the details. The issue here is that basically Hamas wanted it to be a 6-week initial ceasefire when there's people talk about the exchange of prisoners and hostages. There isn't. Hostages being released and prisoners being released. Prisoners from Israeli prisons where many of these people actually been convicted in a court of law of crimes, some including terrorist acts, but also crucially huge more numbers of Palestinians being released compared with the number of hostages from Israel being released. Now, the key thing here is that Hamas have said basically, if we haven't got a finalised deal for the next stage at the end of those 6 weeks, we keep the ceasefire. The ceasefire must remain. That is going to be a big sticking point, isn't it? Because that gives carte blanche for Hamas to carry on doing whatever they want to do for as long as they want.
Exactly. Israel has two objectives in this war. The first is to get back all of the hostages. I'll remind you, there are still 2 children. There is a baby who is being held hostage, and it's to dismantle Hamas's military machine so it can never pull off an atrocity like October 7th again and can no longer shoot rockets at the Israeli home front. Now, Israel is saying we want to have an initial phase of getting hostages back, and then under the proposal, negotiations to wind down this war. But of course, if Hamas thinks that it can simply by going to negotiations drag on a ceasefire indefinitely, then it gets a permanent ceasefire through the back door. And that's not acceptable to Israel because we want to get all of the hostages back. We're getting shocking information from the hostages who are returning about how they were starved, how they were enslaved. And we can't leave them there for another day longer.
Can we talk about some of the hostages? I thought the hostage release, again, I'm doing the same language as the BBC, the hostage rescue that happened the other day. It was magnificent. I have to say, I felt quite tearful when I saw the site, and especially the younger woman. I don't know why. I think it's because I've got a young daughter of a similar age, who at the weekend was at a music festival and came back alive. I didn't have to wait 8 months for her to come back. And you know what? Every parent, I think, would feel that when Noah's returned, and she was one of the faces of the awful scenes on October the 7th as she was dragged away on that motorbike by her hostage takers. I've seen extraordinary messages online. I mean, the abuse I get for I'm an evil Zionist, hag, goodness knows what, for just, I think, speaking out on the side of right on this. People are saying, I mean, every time you get the personal abuse, you know you're on the right side of history, is my view. But people are saying, look, these hostages, they don't look like they've been starved. They look, some of them, fairly well fed. They've been kept in civilian homes. Obviously, a clear reason why civilians are getting killed when these hostages are rescued. But they're not being badly treated. What is your response to that?
That's not what we're hearing from the doctors. We're hearing that they were starved, that they had basically no protein over 8 months, and that caused severe muscle wastage. We know that they were enslaved. We know that Noa Agamani was locked in a room and she was forced to do domestic duties for her civilian captors. We know that they were forced to work for their hostages, for their hostage takers, who kept them as slaves, and they were abused. And we know the doctors say that they were beaten nearly every single day. And that's why it's so urgent for Israel to get all 120 of those hostages out, the ones who are still alive. Get them alive out in time. And I have to say, everyone as well was so moved to see that footage of the soldiers going in to rescue the hostages. And I don't know, where people are watching. And I think they should ask themselves whether, if God forbid their country ever came under such an attack and they were taken hostage, their neighbors would rush into military reserve duty so that they could rush into the line of fire and save them. I think that shows the real grit of the Israeli people.
Absolutely. I've been astounded by the reactions to the hostage rescue. I really have, absolutely astounded. In terms of where we go now, Eylon, we know that Benjamin Netanyahu, he's lost one of the supposedly more moderate members of his government. We've got him sort of trying to hold on to power, basically installed to some of the right wingers in the party, in rival parties in his government, basically saying, we don't go to a ceasefire, we fight on to the end. Where do you think this is going to go?
Israel faces a horrible set of dilemmas now, whether to fight Hamas to the end or fight to rescue the hostages and say, we'll fight Hamas another day. The one thing we need now is firm international pressure on Hamas and its backers, Qatar, Turkey, Iran, to release the hostages. Because right now, Hamas has no interest to release the hostages in a deal, outside a deal, because, as I said, it's a death cult. It wants this war to drag on because it knows that images of suffering on TV get it pity points. It makes people hate Israel, and it makes them want to join its war to destroy Israel. So we need the world to put pressure on Hamas to release the hostages unconditionally, immediately. More pressure on that so that hopefully we can get all those hostages home.
Indeed. Eylon Levy, former Israeli government spokesman, also, as I say, the host of the Israel State of a Nation podcast. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for watching. Drop a comment below. Don't forget to like, share, and hit subscribe to stay updated with our latest content. Until next time, stay informed and inspired. This is Dejobnik signing off.